The man responsible for feeding half the world's population is also responsible for the first weapons of mass destruction. His name does not appear in most history books. He won the Nobel Prize after committing what many considered a war crime. His wife killed herself in protest, and the process he invented is still, today, keeping billions of people alive. This is the story of Fritz Haber. In 1900, the world had a problem with no solution. The human population was growing faster than the land could feed it. Crops required nitrogen. Nitrogen existed in abundance in the atmosphere, but plants cannot absorb it directly. For centuries, farmers had relied on animal manure and guano, seabird droppings, mined from islands off the coast of South America. By the early 20th century, those reserves were running out. Scientists estimated that within decades, mass starvation would become inevitable. A German chemist named Fritz Haber decided to solve it. In 1909, working in a laboratory in Karlsruhe, Haber achieved something previously considered impossible. He synthesized ammonia from nitrogen and hydrogen under extreme heat and pressure. It does not sound like much, but it was everything. His colleague Carl Bosch scaled the process for industrial production. Together, they created what became known as the Haber-Bosch process, a method for manufacturing synthetic fertilizer on a scale the world had never seen. Within a generation, crop yields doubled, then tripled. Today, roughly half of all nitrogen atoms in the human body pass through the Haber-Bosch process at some point. Fritz Haber had solved world hunger. He was celebrated, decorated, declared a genius. Then the war came. In 1914, Germany entered the First World War. Haber, like many German scientists, felt a profound sense of patriotic duty. He was Jewish. He had spent his career being told, quietly but consistently, that Jewish scientists occupied a lower tier in German academic life. The war, he believed, was his opportunity to prove otherwise, to serve, to belong. The German military had a problem. The Western Front had become a stalemate. Both sides were dug into trenches stretching hundreds of miles. Artillery had limits. Infantry assaults were catastrophic. A new weapon was needed, one that could move across the front, enter the trenches, and kill without a wall of soldiers. Fritz Haber proposed chlorine gas. The military was reluctant. International agreements, the Hague Conventions, prohibited the use of poison in warfare. Haber argued that gas was no more inhumane than a bullet. Death by gas, he suggested, was no worse than death by artillery. He volunteered to supervise the first deployment personally. The date was April 22, 1915. The location was Ypres, Belgium. German soldiers opened 5,700 cylinders simultaneously. A yellow-green cloud, 160 tons of chlorine, drifted across the Allied lines on a favorable wind. The soldiers who encountered it had no masks, no training, no protocol. Nothing in military history had prepared anyone for what was coming. Chlorine destroys lung tissue on contact. Those who breathed it directly died within minutes. Others ran. The gas moved faster. Within hours, 1,000 Allied soldiers were dead. 4,000 were severely injured, many permanently. Fritz Haber was not in a laboratory that day. He was at the front, watching. He described it in private correspondence as a success. Fritz Haber's wife was Clara Immerwahr. She was also a chemist, the first woman in Germany to receive a doctorate in chemistry. Her career had been largely abandoned to support her husband's work. When she learned what he had done at Ypres, she called it a perversion of science, a misuse of knowledge against its own purpose. The records of their argument that night do not survive. What is known is this. On the night of May 1st, 1915, 10 days after Ypres, Clara Immerwahr walked into the garden of their home in Berlin. She took her husband's military pistol. She shot herself. She died in the arms of their 12-year-old son. The following morning, Fritz Haber left for the Eastern Front to supervise another gas deployment. The war ended in 1918. Germany had lost. That same year, the Nobel Committee awarded the Nobel Prize in Chemistry to Fritz Haber for the Haber-Bosch process, for feeding the world. The international scientific community reacted with outrage. Scientists from allied nations refused to attend the ceremony. Open letters were published. Demands were made that the prize be revoked. It was not revoked. Haber received his medal. He stood in Stockholm and accepted it as though the intervening years had not happened. The story does not end in Stockholm. In 1933, Adolf Hitler came to power in Germany. Fritz Haber was Jewish. Despite his decades of service, despite the Nobel Prize, despite the gas weapons, despite the fertilizer that had sustained German agriculture through the war years, he was removed from his position. His colleagues were dismissed. He was told clearly that his contributions did not matter anymore. He fled Germany. He died in exile in Basel, Switzerland in January 1934. And then the final detail. The pesticide technology developed under Haber's supervision, a compound called Zyklon A, was later modified by the Nazi regime. It became Zyklon B, the gas used to kill millions in the concentration camps, including many of Haber's own relatives, descended directly from research conducted at his institute. The man who fed the world, the man who weaponized the atmosphere, the Nobel laureate who died in exile. He did not live to see what his work became, but it became it regardless. This is what happens when science is separated from conscience, when brilliance is placed in service of the state without asking what the state intends to do with it. Fritz Haber is not a villain. He is not a hero. He is the most important scientist most people have never heard of. And that is precisely the problem.